Truth is, I thought it mattered. I thought that
money
mattered. But does it bollocks? Not compared to how people matter.
Welcome, mention and other fine folks, to the Someday Dispatch of the Black Letter, where we contemplate thoughts worth thinking as we try to navigate this upside-down, topsy-turvy world to find, hopefully, greener pastures on the other side where we'll become wealthier, healthier and wiser. A little bit of a smorgasbord on the agenda today. And take a look at David Attenborough suggesting that you go plant-based for the environment. Take a look at why that is helpful. Take a look at also the markets, how they continue to defy gravity. Look at the potential price gain of Bitcoin coming up. This time the Winklevoss brothers are suggesting a $500,000 price on Bitcoin, and it's not as outrageous as it might sound to those of you not aware or new to the space. And then we'll take a look at this one fellow who has correctly called, I think since 1980s sometime, or 1990s, all the presidents of the United States based on a variety of factors. We'll take a look at that for what it's worth. Be interesting to see, because politics does have a hand on the stock market, and of course it reacts to that, obviously, because the government plays a big role, can play a big role, as we're seeing currently, in manipulating and creating stock market bubbles. And so the markets sort of do react to that kind of news, so we'll see where that's at. So let's get busy. David Attenborough wants you to go plant-based to save the planet, and of course this is an additional reason to choose the veganism or plant-based eating. Attenborough has watched the environment deteriorate after decades of exploring it, and is urging people to change their diet and go vegetarian or cut back on meat to save animals and the planet. A Life on Our Planet is 94-year-old Attenborough's most personal and compelling documentary, which is set to hit Netflix this fall. His entire career has been spent working on shows like Planet Earth, admiring the awe-inspiring world around him and the animals that inhabit it. But over time, Attenborough admits the world is, as he knew it, has started to crumble. And of course, we can all see that. Climate change, obviously, is a real concern, despite those in our community who consider it to be a hoax. It certainly is not. I think if we have scientists, we need to listen to them. Otherwise, what's the point? Anyone with an agenda can then push public opinion around, so we need to rely on scientists. And of course, they're not infallible, but taken in aggregate or on the whole, I think it's definitely worthwhile. Here was what he has to say. We must radically reduce the way we farm. We must change our diet. The planet can't support billions of meat eaters. Incidentally, he is a vegetarian, so he is walking his talk, at least. Neat article, and interesting. If you're interested in that, have a read of it. Of course, I've been vegan for over 30 years, primarily for ethical reasons, but I do appreciate, and I've come to appreciate, both the health benefits as well as the benefits to the environment as well. So something to consider if you are concerned about the planet, would like to make some easy choices to help climate change and to Mother Earth, keep her healthy. Okay, on to Northman Trader, who we've read about before, obviously, Sven Henrich, very interesting fellow, got his fingers on the pulse of the market, and is just as astonished as I am, or perhaps more so, because he's probably been in it longer than I have. Here's this article from yesterday, Tech Signal. As bears are capitulating and markets keep making new highs on the heels of yet another dovish speech by Jerome Powell, investors continue to chase historic valuations. Nothing has mattered so far, not the imbalances, not the rising VIX, not the data, not the historic stretches in the charts of individual stocks such as Tesla, Apple, and others, nor valuations. But the deteriorating picture underneath markets has left a familiar trail. Specifically, the chart that is flashing red here is the NASI, the Nasdaq Summation Index, and this is it here. While the index is engaged in a pattern of price compression as it keeps rising in a steep rising channel patterns, and here he's talking about this as well. So all these steep rising channels, and you can see that the NASI is making lower highs. And so he's pointing out the last couple of times this happened, we had crashes, and here again, lower highs, and then boom. So we'll see if this holds water. I mean, he's a fantastic technician and technical analyst, but of course, so far, the markets just seem to be disregarding both fundamentals and technical analysis to a large degree, or at least to some degree for technical analysis anyway. But I submit to you, dear viewer, that eventually the chickens will have to come home to roost, as they say. So that was just a brief little article we had here. But as you can see, it is interesting. And of course, we can find all these sorts of correlations. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. But just another example of how the markets perhaps are mispriced and their values are excessively high. And I would submit that they are, certainly. Bitcoin price to 500,000. Winklevoss lays out ultimate bullish case. Tyler Winklevoss believes the Bitcoin price is headed to $500,000 in the long term if it overtakes gold. And of course, we know the market cap of gold, about 9 trillion, maybe more, and that's what they're basing that on. The theory for a $500,000 long-term Bitcoin price is straightforward. Winklevoss believes Bitcoin could overtake gold as the global market's leading safe haven asset. Since the market capitalization of gold is estimated to be 9 trillion, while Bitcoin is valued at around 200 billion, this could leave a 45-fold upside. Absolutely. Here you can see does Bitcoin have what it takes to potentially overtake gold? So they put up a chart here. This is a source from one of the Winklevoss brothers. Bitcoin versus gold, talk about scarcity. And you can see in all but one of these 7 items is gold has the check mark or the winning mark against it, right? And that's in adoption. So the market capitalization of gold is currently 9 trillion. And the market capitalization of Bitcoin is 200 billion, probably a little over that, but that's roughly correct. Of course, divisibility is a lot easier. Storage, much easier to store. And arguably just as safe. You have to, of course, protect your digital wallet just as much as you have to protect a safe or vault. And counterfeit difficulty is very expensive and has not occurred, and is also difficult, but possible. I don't believe that gold can actually be counterfeited. People have tried, and that's of course because there we're actually talking about alchemy, right? Turning lead into gold or whatnot, which is possible apparently from nuclear transmutation, I guess. But it's exceptionally difficult, and it produces a little bit, and I don't think it's cost effective anyway. So practically, I guess possible, but not really realistic, I should say. But there you have it. So Bitcoin sort of does outdo gold. There's a couple of other things I had to say. Currently, gold is a reliable store of value and the classic inflation hedge. Supply. The supply of gold is actually unknown. While gold remains scarce or precious on planet Earth, the same cannot be said with respect to our galaxy. And of course, the Winklevoss twins are talking about potentially mining asteroids for gold. Apparently, there's a lot of gold up in the asteroids. But of course, currently that's prohibitively expensive. And additionally, I probably think that's decades away, probably at least several decades away, if not 50 years or more. But who knows? I mean, things are trending quickly. Technology is improving exponentially fast. So perhaps by the 2030s, we'll be able to get to the asteroids and mine them. But I think that's very optimistic. As you know, we've discussed this before, and I think, in my opinion, it's probably not a concern for us who are sort of middle-aged at this stage anyway, but still something to consider. And another great benefit of Bitcoin, right, is that it is immutable that way. Inflation is coming. Money stored in a bank will get run over. Money invested in assets like real estate or the stock market will keep pace. Money stored in gold or Bitcoin will outrun the scourge, and money stored in Bitcoin will run the fastest, overtaking gold. So I'm not certain about this. Money invested in assets like real estate or the stock market will keep pace. I don't think so. I think they are both in bubbles, and they do need a correction, substantial correction. So if that does happen, then of course they will not keep pace. With inflation, unlikely, because there'll have to be a correction. So that's my opinion. Of course, right now we haven't seen that. So who knows how long this continued rally in the stock markets can continue. But it probably can continue at least until the election, I would imagine. If we are right about using a gold framework to value Bitcoin, and Bitcoin continues on this path, then the bull case scenario for Bitcoin is that it is undervalued by a multiple of 45. Said differently, the price of Bitcoin could appreciate 45 times from where it is today, which means we could see a price of $500,000 per Bitcoin. So there you have it. Look forward to your comments below. Do you think Bitcoin will reach $500,000? Of course, they don't give you an idea of when this will happen, but of course, I believe that we'll have a $1 million Bitcoin by the end of the decade. So there you have it. Something to consider. Okay, just an interesting article, I thought. After predicting Trump's 2016 win, Alan Lichtman says he knows who's going to win in 2020. American historian Alan Lichtman has correctly predicted every U.S. presidential election winner since 1984 And this year he says Democratic nominee Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States. So there's that. Whether you believe him or not, or want to read more, you can have a read of his article here and some of the criteria he uses. And I guess, having a record like that for over 40 years or so, almost 40 years, is pretty good. So that's another element to consider, depending on where you stand. Really is irrelevant. Just be aware of where the markets might react to this sort of information, although they might be pricing it in already, because most of the polls I've seen seem to suggest that Biden is leading in the polls. So of course, I remain agnostic, being Canadian, but also at the same time, I believe that I think we should not discount Trump. I think there's a lot of people, he has a very rabid fan base who probably will come out in droves, I imagine, because I think everybody's going to realize that this is an election for the ages, and each side wants their candidate in. And of course, unfortunately, I think the Democrats chose the wrong candidate, and that might harm their voting for folks who are really looking for more of a left-leaning candidate, such as Sanders or someone or like that, Elizabeth Warren perhaps. And of course, they don't have that. So will they come out to vote for Biden? We'll have to see, I guess. There you have it, folks. Just a little touch on where things are at in the markets generally. Just some interesting pieces, a smorgasbord, if you will. And let's take a look at the markets generally right now. Okay, so everything in the green at the moment. It's going to be, of course, a week with a positive outlook, I'm sure. When we take a look tomorrow, I'm sure this week would have closed in the green for probably all three indices. So we'll see what happens. Of course, it's just small numbers at the moment, so no big moves either way. And of course, in the afternoon, it could retrace some of these early gains and end up in the red. Who knows? But we will keep an eye on that. Take a look back tomorrow. Okay, gold is still sort of consolidating, so nothing much going on. Holding actually below 2,000 at the moment. You can see here has been a few days where it's just peaked up above 2,000 an ounce. Probably get there again soon, but there you have it. We'll see what happens, but I'm expecting gold and silver to move to the upside at some point, certainly by the end of the year. We'll see. And here's silver doing similar to gold, just sort of consolidating, hanging around, taking its time, catching its breath before probably we'll see another leg up, probably by the end of the year as well. As I said, probably similar to gold. We'll keep our eye on that. Okay, let's take a look at the cryptocurrencies. Okay, another green 24 hours, market cap above 370 billion again, looking at about 373 billion, 5,892 coins available for your purchase. Of course, I'm just sticking with the top ones, or at least I would only stick with the top 10 or so. And frankly, currently I'm just buying Bitcoin, as you know. Bitcoin, Ethereum in the green, as well as XRP. Polkadot continues to do well. You can see overall, though, the last 7 days, the top 5 coins have certainly still been down overall. Litecoin up a little bit, most of them up last 24 hours. You can see not by huge amounts, but a little bit. Stellar up 1.1%. Cosmos up 5%. That's decent. And there you go. That's your top 30 or so coins. And now on to the online oracle, the 8-ball economist, our trusty sidekick for today's most pressing question. Okay, so the last article we looked at, as you'll recall here, is about Alan Lichtman and how he is correctly predicted since 1984 every presidential election. And he says this year, Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States. So I thought that would make an interesting question for the online 8-ball. Will Biden win the presidential election in November 2020? I don't know. I hope so, but I'm not certain. Yes, definitely. Okay, well, there you go. The 8-ball economist seems to think that Biden will win the election in November, become the next president of the United States. And of course, that's a very definite yes. So there you have it, folks. I certainly hope so. I think Trump has done great damage to the American democracy and the American society at large. So we'll see if that can be undone, and if some peace and compassion can reign again under Biden. But we'll see. There you go. Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate you, and I hope you're staying well out there. I hope things are well and you're able to save some money, pay down some debt. We'll get through this, and on the other side, there will be better opportunities. So just let's keep moving forward. Remember, be patient, be kind, stay healthy, and remember, above all else, dum spiro, spero.